Well, it's Friday, so that means it's time for another Q&A episode here on OTRSCentral. If you want your questions answered in the Q&As that come every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on this channel, information on how to do so is in the description box below. Let's get started here. At Demon Studios has two really good questions to start this off. How do you feel when WWE rehired Emma but fired AW for talking about Linda's Senate campaign? Well, let's put it this way. When it comes to the whole Emma deal, if they were going to sit there and actually fire her for that, but then sit there and allow people with DUI arrests and marijuana arrests to sit there and still stay with the company and largely go unpunished, then what would that make them look like? That would open them up to all types of potential HR issues in terms of inequality and in terms of unequal treatment of their workers. As far as AEW getting fired for talking about Linda's Senate campaign, unfortunately for him, that was a big no-no. You just shouldn't have referenced that in 2012, as ridiculous as it was and as ridiculous as it seems, because it is ridiculous. But yeah, I think it's kind of stupid that they would consider firing Emma, but they brought her back. But AEW still hasn't been brought back, and this is about a Senate campaign that was doomed to fail anyways. And his other question is, do you think that the WWE is giving CM Punk the Randy Savage treatment? Yes. Will that last forever? Probably not. Is that something that isn't going to change anytime soon? Probably. At Real Mike's Gym asks, excuse me, to start your NBA franchise with one of the four back in the day, would it be Duncan, Carter, McGrady, or Garnett, and why? It definitely wouldn't be McGrady. If I was starting an all-time cheeseburger eating team, then it would be Vince Carter, because he's fat. I mean fat. Like a 600-pound two-guard, that fat ass. But I'm not starting my team around him. I would choose Duncan over Garnett because Duncan had more of that killer instinct. He had more of that ability to understand what his team needed out of him and when, as opposed to Garnett, who was a great stat sheet filler, would get you to a certain point, but then in the big games, in big moments, in big shot situations, he would defer more often than not, and then the occasions that he did actually step up to the plate, they usually didn't go very well. I would take Tim Duncan, no question about it. At Wrestling Crisis, your thoughts on Jeff Hardy being a heel in TNA? I'm assuming you're talking about the run in 2010 and 2011. You know, when you look back at 10, they're coming, and Bound for Glory 2010, you know, a lot of people were anticipating somebody switching. They thought it was either going to be Angle or more likely not Mr. Anderson. So the Jeff Hardy turn caught everybody by surprise, and that potentially could be a really good thing. I mean, you had a reaction where the fans were throwing shit into the ring. You don't get those type of reactions every day in wrestling. You especially don't get those out of the WWE. So when a TNA has the opportunity to get a heel reaction out of the crowd like that, you know you're on the verge of something really interesting. Unfortunately, he got put in this whole fucking freaking whatever the fuck Immortal faction, and it just became one big stupid pile of shit. Unfortunately, it could have had some legs. They could have really went somewhere with it, but it was stupid. At Grand IJ, if you could switch one wrestler from the Fatal 4-Way match at Battleground, who would it be and why? Kane, because it's Kane. That's why. At J Day Day, do you think it would be best if WWE separated Raw and SmackDown back into two completely different shows and rosters? Not necessarily. I mean, it sounds great in theory, only if they actually made them two distinct, unique brands, but I don't think they would ever do that again, so then the answer to that question is frankly no. At Tom Fisher 369, what do you think of Damien Sandow's gimmick currently, and how his career has gone downhill, excuse me. You know, I almost wonder if this was an example of creative really not having anything for him, and as a result, Damien Sandow said, I don't want to be totally off TV. Let's figure out something. They said, well, we could do this with you, and he's like, fine, I'll take it. I'll sink my teeth into it and make the most out of it, and that's possibly what could have happened, because otherwise what they've had him do doesn't make a whole lot of sense. His career going downhill, it's a shame, but it's all too expected and all too common in today's WWE, sadly. At the Mad Stork 83, would you rather see host WrestleMania 31 Scott Steiner, Psycho Sid, or the Iron Sheik? Oh my fucking God. Why stop there? Why not have all three of them host WrestleMania? Oh, baby! I might throw Vader in there and say, just so you can say, that's fucking bullshit. Live mic for any one of these three. I'd have Iron Sheik go on an anti-Semitic rant. I'd have Scott Steiner try and teach us all math and the English language. And I'd just let Psycho Sid have 10 minutes and go at it. How about that? At Trey on 5. Where do you think Ryback would be at in his career if WWE never turned him heel? They'd have found another way to screw the pooch with him. You know, it wasn't even the fact that they ruined him with the heel turn, even though that definitely put the nail in the coffin as far as I was concerned. You know, for some reason they threw him up against CM Punk, and then they didn't go all the way with him against CM Punk. And then, you know, you have him sit there and lose to Mark Henry. Then you turn him heel, and then you have him lose to John Cena. And, you know, so it was a part of it, but it's not the total thing that ruined it. But, yeah, it was a ridiculous decision, and I'll stand by that assertion. At Chris S. Krager. Who do you consider the Peyton Manning of wrestling, i.e. someone very good, but loses a lot of title matches? TNA fans would probably equate this to maybe a Samoa Joe, somebody who gets title matches, but more often than not doesn't win them. I'm not sure if there's one per se in the WWE. I'm sure a lot of you would say, well, Dolph Ziggler, because he's one of the best motherfucking wrestlers in the world. He's not that good. So I wouldn't throw him into that category. In terms of Peyton Manning of wrestling, I would look at more like a John Cena in the sense of how he is treated, you know, by the NFL in the case of Peyton Manning in relation to how the WWE treats John Cena. Any negatives are quickly brushed aside, if not flat out distorted and ignored, and all the positives, whatever positives they are emphasized. And in fact, positives that don't even exist are manufactured in order to protect the name, in order to protect the brand, because it's good for business. So in terms of treatment from the NFL compared to treatment from the WWE, I think John Cena most closely compares to Peyton Manning. At Calvin Douglas 23, if a part-timer like Y2J came back and always got a title shot, would internet fans give him the Batista treatment? No, and hell no. And the reason I say that is because we have clear evidence to suggest otherwise. Remember when Chris Jericho came back? I believe it was late in 2007. He had been gone for like 2+ years. Comes back, instantly gets a title shot against Randy Orton. Let's fast forward to the Royal Rumble 2012 and the run-up to that show. Chris Jericho comes back. Everybody's assuming that he's going to win the Royal Rumble and get a title shot, and most people seem to be okay with that. Then Sheamus wins the Royal Rumble, and the internet, by and large, is relatively pissed off about that. I remember that. And then he's still thrust into a spot where he gets immediate title shots. Keep in mind, immediate title shots against CM Punk. So no, they wouldn't fucking give him the Batista treatment. I don't know if it's because he's small. If he goes back to the Attitude Era, he does flips and kicks because he's Jericho. I don't know what the fuck. I don't understand what the difference is. What's the difference? Oh, the difference is that Batista doing it isn't okay because you ain't Daniel Bryan to win the Rumble and win at WrestleMania. Fucking spoiled, petulant brats. Seriously, what the fuck's the difference? There isn't one. Shut up. At AGS WWE, can Bray Wyatt rebound by beating Jericho after he got buried by John Cena? Yeah. Because Bray Wyatt himself is still incredibly over with the audience. So beating a Jericho would, definitely help him. I do think that Jericho needs to beat him somehow, some way first before Bray Wyatt ultimately goes over. Maybe you need to give Jericho a few victories to kind of build him up a little bit before Bray Wyatt actually goes over him. But yeah, he can rebound. Will he? We'll see. At WWE 961, do you think Vince spent $100 million on Linda's Senate campaign to make up for cheating on her? I don't know about all of that. Who knows? Who knows? I think this was the ultimate way of Vince trying to sit there and buy mainstream acceptance for his company and himself and his family and what he does and what he's done over the years by trying to buy a Senate seat for a moderate Republican like his wife in a deep blue Democratic state like Connecticut. It was doomed to fail. It was disaster. And not only did you spend $50 million the first time around to learn this lesson, 2 years later, you did the same fucking thing again. So I think it was more so the obsession of mainstream acceptance and, oh my God, my wife's in the Senate. It doesn't get much more legit than that, except it doesn't get much more crooked than that. And John Parrilla asked, how did you feel when I held up an OTRS sign front row TV side on SmackDown in February 2012? I think I remember this, and I appreciate it. I appreciate anybody that holds up a sign OTRS related. I remember the cats that went to SmackDown last year, and they held up the big shovel behind Triple H. That was fucking awesome. That was absolutely awesome. I'd like it if more people held up OTRSCentral signs, at events, but I'm not going to go out of my way to ask you to do it, except for right now, go do it. I appreciate it, and I appreciate anybody else that does it too. And at Dexter C73 closes out this Q&A. How would you make the WWE Network more profitable? Now, while I'm on the outside looking in, so I don't have the advantage of knowing all the particulars and all the inner workings, from the outside looking here, here's a couple of things that I may have done differently. Number one, not releasing the network until it is available in more markets. So until I have the ability to have it available at least in Europe, along with Canada and maybe Mexico, I'm not releasing the WWE Network. I'm not. I would not do that. Also, I would have had the initial price point be higher, $14.99. I don't know that $9.99 to $14.99 a month would have been that much of a deterrent from people subscribing based off of what all they were getting. Because again, you can talk about all the old content, some original content, and most importantly of all, the fact that you can get the pay-per-views for $14.99 a month. So this is an incredible appeal. So I'd raised the price point a little bit. I would have left also a longer period of time to build up to this and promote to this. It was like they announced it, and 6 weeks later they were going live. They should have had 3 to 6 months invested into promoting and marketing and building this up. And they didn't. And I think that was a mistake too. So those would be some of the most fundamental changes that I would have made perhaps to help maybe make the WWE Network more profitable in the short term and more importantly in the long term. Thanks again to all of you that submitted your questions for this Q&A. I appreciate it. Check back again Monday for another Q&A episode. Take to Twitter and tweet your questions to the show. And stay tuned all weekend long for more great content from me here on OTRS Central.